My fiancée secretly reconnected with her college ex while I worked 60-hour weeks saving for our honeymoon. So I ended it all, and she came begging back. I'm a 29-year-old male paramedic, and I've been with my fiancée Erica, a 27-year-old elementary school teacher, for 3 years. We were supposed to get married next spring. I own our house, and she moved in about a year ago. That's when things started to get weird. Around February, Erica began acting differently. She spent more time on her phone and wouldn't let me see who she was texting. She started going to bed earlier and became overall distant. When I asked what was wrong, she blamed work stress or wedding planning stress. The phone thing really bothered me. We had always been open about our phones. If hers rang while she was in the shower, I would answer it, normal couple stuff. Suddenly, she became overly protective, keeping her phone face down on the table, taking it with her to the bathroom, and never leaving it charging where I could see it. I tried talking to her about it, but she insisted everything was fine and said I was being paranoid, so I backed off. To distract myself, I started working extra shifts to save money for our honeymoon. We had talked about going to Hawaii since she had never been and always wanted to see the islands. I figured maybe I was just being paranoid, so I worked extra shifts, putting in 60-plus-hour weeks sometimes, which meant less time at home and less time to notice her strange behavior in the last few weeks before everything exploded. She seemed like a different person. Although she was still going through the motions of being my fiancée and still talked about the wedding and our future, it felt fake, like she was acting out a role instead of being genuinely excited about marrying me. I remained in denial, making excuses and thinking that maybe once we got through the wedding planning stress, things would go back to normal. I thought she might just be one of those people who gets overwhelmed by big events and shuts down emotionally. I was so wrong. Last month, we were supposed to go to dinner at this Italian place she picked out. It was nothing special, just a Tuesday night date, but I was looking forward to spending some quality time together since we had barely seen each other all week. She had been acting weird all day, though. I got home around 5 in the evening, and she was already dressed, sitting on the couch, just staring at her phone. When I said hi, she barely looked up. I asked if she was ready to go, and she replied, "Sure," in a flat voice, as if she were doing me a favor. We got to the restaurant, and the hostess sat us at a nice table by the window. Finally, I asked what was wrong for probably the third time. She put her phone down and looked at me with an expression I had never seen before, nervous but also excited. "I need to tell you something," she said. "Calvin reached out to me." Calvin was her college ex-boyfriend, and my stomach immediately dropped. She told me he had found her on Instagram a few weeks ago and said he had been thinking about her, that he made a mistake when they broke up. They had been talking, really talking, about everything and how they never should have broken up. I asked if she had been texting her ex for weeks without telling me. She said it wasn't like that at first. It was just catching up. But then old feelings came back. What they had was different, intense, and passionate. Then she dropped the bomb. "You know what, Chandler? Calvin used to make me feel like I was drowning in the best way possible. With you, I feel like I'm floating in a kiddie pool, safe, shallow, and boring as hell. I keep wondering if this is really what love is supposed to feel like, or if I'm just settling because you're convenient. Maybe Calvin is better for me." There it was. She just called our 3-year relationship boring. She called me convenient and said her ex was better for her, all in a restaurant. I sat there for probably 30 seconds just staring at her. She looked nervous now, like she was starting to realize what she had just said, but she didn't take it back. "All right," I said finally. "Well, now there's nothing stopping you." Her face went white. I told her she had just said her ex was better for her, so she should go be with him, but not while living in my house. She tried to backtrack, but I was done. I dropped $40 on the table and told her I was going home, expecting her to be packing when I got there. The drive home was a blur. It was surreal. After 3 years together and being engaged for 6 months, she basically told me I was her consolation prize. Some jackass who dumped her in college was a better option than the guy who bought her a house and was about to marry her. I kept replaying what she said. Drowning in the best way possible versus floating in a kiddie pool. Safe, shallow, and boring. Convenient. Those words were going to stick in my head for a long time. When I got home, she was on the couch crying, but I was done with her tears. I told her to start packing her stuff. She tried to argue, but I went to the kitchen and canceled our joint checking account on my phone while she was talking. I called my bank too, to make sure she couldn't access anything else. It took her about 2 hours to pack. I didn't help. I just sat at the kitchen table and let her figure it out. When she was done, she stood by the door with her suitcases, looking at me like she expected me to change my mind. She asked if I wanted the engagement ring back and set it on the coffee table when I said yes. Before leaving, she said it was crazy to throw away 3 years over one conversation. I replied, "You're the one who threw it away. I'm just cleaning up the mess." And that was it. She left, and I was suddenly single again after 3 years, sitting in my house that was way too quiet, staring at an engagement ring on my coffee table, wondering what just happened. By the next morning, the phone calls started. First my mom, then my sister Sasha, and finally my dad. Word travels fast when you're supposed to get married in 2 months and suddenly your fiancé moves out. I kept it simple with all of them. I told them Erica decided she wanted to be with someone else, and I wasn't going to compete for my own fiancé. My parents were angry on my behalf. My mom wanted to know if there was another man involved. When I told her about Calvin, she went off about how Erica was throwing away a good thing for a fantasy. My dad was more practical, asking if I needed help with any of the wedding vendors or canceling stuff. Sasha just called Erica an idiot, which honestly made me feel better. The hardest call was from Erica's parents. Her mom called me crying, begging me to work things out with her daughter. She kept saying that Erica was just confused and scared about getting married, that it was normal to have doubts. I tried to explain that this wasn't about wedding jitters, but she wouldn't listen. Her dad left me a voicemail saying I was giving up too easily and that relationships take work. I didn't call either of them back. What was I supposed to say? That their daughter told me I was boring and convenient compared to her ex? That she had been emotionally cheating for weeks? They wouldn't want to hear that anyway. Our mutual friends were the tricky part. Within a few days, people started reaching out, asking what happened. I decided early on that I wasn't going to trash talk Erica, but I also wasn't going to lie to protect her feelings. When people asked, I just said, "Ask Erica about Calvin," and left it at that. That simple phrase told them everything they needed to know. Most people aren't stupid. They could figure out what happened from there. Honestly, I wanted her to have to explain herself. I wanted her to tell our friends why she threw away our relationship for her college ex. Word spread fast. Our friend group isn't huge, maybe 15 people total, and within a week pretty much everyone knew the basic story. The reactions were mixed, but mostly in my favor. The guys were all on my side. They understood why I couldn't stay with someone who basically called me her backup plan. Some of the women thought I was being too harsh and that I should have tried counseling or given her time to figure out her feelings. But screw that noise. I'm not going to counseling to convince someone to choose me over their ex. I'm not going to sit around while my fiancé figures out her feelings about whether she wants to be with me or some other dude. That's not how this works. The worst part was dealing with all the wedding stuff. We had already put deposits down on everything: venue, catering, photographer, DJ, flowers. Some vendors were understanding when I explained the situation. The photographer was cool about it, saying she had been doing weddings for 20 years and had seen it all before. She only charged me a small cancellation fee. Others were less sympathetic. The venue kept our entire deposit, saying it was too late to rebook for our date. The caterer tried to charge us for extra food we never asked for, even though I had already placed the full order for the wedding. All told, I ended up losing about $8,000 in deposits and cancellation fees. $8,000 just to find out that my fiancé thought I was boring. But here's the thing. I didn't ask Erica to help with any of the financial hit. I could have taken her to small claims court for half the costs, but I wanted a clean break. Losing that money sucked, but it was worth it to not have to deal with her anymore. The vendors weren't even the hardest part. The toughest thing was calling all our friends and family to let them know the wedding was off. Those conversations were brutal. Everyone wanted more details and was curious if there was any chance we would work things out. The weirdest reactions came from some of the teachers at Erica's school. 3 different women reached out to me, not to defend Erica, but to check on me and essentially say that she had messed up. These were people who worked with her every day, and they were taking my side. That told me everything I needed to know about how she was handling the situation at work. Apparently, she had been telling people that we grew apart and had different visions for the future. Typical of her to twist the story to make herself look better. But teachers are smart, and they could probably see right through her narrative. Plus, if she was acting strange at work the same way she was at home, they probably knew something was off. About 2 weeks after she moved out, I heard through a friend that Erica had been posting on social media about following your heart and not settling for less than you deserve. That infuriated me more than anything. She was framing it like I wasn't good enough, as if she had outgrown me or some nonsense, but I didn't respond. I didn't post anything about my side of the story or try to set the record straight publicly. I figured the truth would come out eventually, and engaging in a social media war with my ex-fiancée wasn't going to help anyone. The hardest part was just being alone in the house again. For over a year I had gotten used to having someone there when I got home from work, someone to cook dinner with, watch TV with, and talk about my day with. Suddenly it was just me and way too much quiet. To cope, I threw myself into work, picking up extra shifts whenever I could. Staying busy helped, and the overtime pay would help make up for the money I had lost on wedding deposits. My partner at work, Mike, knew what was going on and was supportive about covering for me when I needed to make vendor calls or deal with wedding stuff. The guys at work were supportive too. A couple of them had been through divorces and reminded me that I was lucky to find out who she really was before I married her instead of afterward. They were right, but it still sucked. About 3 weeks after everything went down, I started feeling like maybe I could move on. The immediate shock and anger were wearing off, and I began to think about what I wanted to do next. Maybe I could travel somewhere I'd always wanted to go. Maybe I could renovate the house. Maybe I could just focus on work and figure out the rest later. That's when everything got a lot more interesting. For about 6 weeks after everything fell apart, my life was surprisingly good. I know that sounds weird considering I had just had my engagement blown up, but hear me out. Once I got past the initial shock and anger, I realized how much stress had been lifted off my shoulders. No more wondering why she was being distant or secretive with her phone. No more wedding planning stress or arguing about guest lists and centerpieces. I could come home from work and just relax without having to analyze every conversation for hidden meaning. I blocked Erica's number and all her social media right after she moved out, so if she was trying to contact me, I wouldn't know. Honestly, I didn't want to know. She had made her choice clear as day when she told me Calvin was better for her. As far as I was concerned, she could go live happily ever after with her college ex and leave me alone. Around this time, I started talking to a nurse from the ER named Veronica. It was nothing serious at first, just casual conversation during downtime between calls. She was cool, funny, smart, and definitely easy on the eyes. More importantly, she didn't seem to have any crazy ex-boyfriend drama going on. The contrast was pretty stark. Veronica would laugh at my stupid jokes, ask questions about my work, and remember details from previous conversations. All the basic relationship stuff that Erica had stopped doing months before our breakup. It made me realize just how checked out Erica had really been toward the end. I wasn't looking to jump into anything serious right away, and Veronica seemed to understand that. We were just two people enjoying each other's company without any pressure or expectations. It was refreshing after years of relationship drama and wedding planning stress. Then one afternoon my buddy Joey called me laughing. I was at home doing some work around the house when my phone rang, and I could barely understand him at first because he was cracking up so hard. "Dude," he finally managed to say, "you're not going to believe this. Joey works with a guy whose girlfriend is friends with one of Erica's teacher friends. Small world, lots of connections." Anyway, word had gotten back to him about what happened with Erica and Calvin. "Your ex got dumped," he said, still laughing. I sat down on my couch, trying to process this information. "What do you mean, dumped her?" I asked. "I mean he used her for about 6 weeks and then told her he didn't really love her anymore. Said he just wanted to make sure about his feelings or something like that." The irony was incredible. After all that talk about their epic love story and how passionate their connection was, Calvin had basically used her for a hookup and tossed her aside again, just like he did in college. According to Joey's source, Calvin had been pretty upfront about it, telling Erica that being with her again made him realize they had both changed too much since college, and that what they had was probably just nostalgia without a future. Basically, everything she should have figured out before blowing up her engagement. "Get this," Joey continued. "Apparently she's been calling him non-stop, trying to get him to change his mind. Dude had to block her number." I felt a weird mix of emotions hearing this. Part of me felt vindicated. I had been right about Calvin being a piece of work who would hurt her again. Part of me wanted to laugh at the irony of her getting a taste of her own medicine, but mostly I felt relieved that I had dodged this bullet. In the next few days, I heard more details through the grapevine. Apparently, Erica had been posting on social media about learning to love yourself and knowing your worth right up until Calvin dumped her. Then suddenly, all her posts disappeared, and she went quiet online. She had also been telling people at work that she was exploring what real love feels like and how she had never been happier. Her teacher friends had been supportive at first, but when the truth came out about Calvin using her, some of them felt pretty uncomfortable about how she had handled the whole situation. I heard from my sister Sasha that Erica's mom had called my mom crying about how her daughter was going through a difficult time and asking if there was any chance I would consider talking to Erica. My mom politely but firmly told her no, that Erica had made her choice and needed to live with the consequences. About a week after Joey's call, I was at the grocery store when I ran into one of our mutual friends, Lisa. She had been at our engagement party and was supposed to be a bridesmaid. It was awkward as hell to see her, but she was actually cool about it. "I just want you to know," she said, "most of us think you handled everything really well. What Erica did was messed up, and you had every right to walk away." That felt good to hear. Sometimes when you're in the middle of drama, you start questioning whether you overreacted or made the wrong choice. Hearing from someone who knew both of us that I had done the right thing was reassuring. Lisa also confirmed what I had been hearing about Calvin. She really thought he was going to leave his whole life behind to be with her. She said they were talking about moving in together and everything. It was delusional. Apparently, Calvin lived about 3 hours away and had his own life, job, and probably other women he was seeing. The idea that he was going to uproot everything for a woman he had already dumped once was pretty ridiculous when you thought about it. But that's what happens when you build a fantasy in your head based on nostalgia and emotional cheating. You convince yourself that your ex was this perfect person who got away when in reality they're just another flawed human being who already showed you once that they didn't want to be with you. A few days later, Erica started trying to contact me. She called from different numbers since I had blocked her original one. I didn't answer any of them. Then she showed up at the fire station where Joey works part-time, asking him to give me a message about how sorry she was and how she had made a huge mistake. Joey told me all this, and I couldn't help but feel a mix of amusement and disbelief. She told me later that I should just kick rocks. I could see she looked like hell, like she hadn't been sleeping or eating properly. Part of me felt bad for her, but a bigger part thought she had earned every bit of the misery she was feeling. When showing up at my friend's work didn't get my attention, she decided to try a different approach. She wrote a massive Facebook post about our relationship and breakup. I didn't see it directly because I had her blocked, but Sasha screenshot it and sent it to me. The post was insane, a complete revisionist history of what happened between us. According to her version, I never really loved her and couldn't accept that she had a romantic history. She claimed I abandoned her when she needed support the most, and that I was too immature to handle adult relationship problems. Not a single word about Calvin. Not a single mention of her telling me I was boring and convenient compared to her ex. Just a bunch of nonsense about how I was the problem and she was the victim. The comments were pretty brutal, though. A bunch of our mutual friends called her out for rewriting history. Someone posted, "Didn't you leave him for your ex?" Another person said, "This isn't how I remember it happening." Even some people I didn't know commented about how her story didn't add up. She deleted the post after a few hours, but the damage was done. Everyone could see she was trying to make herself look better by throwing me under the bus, and most people weren't buying it. That's when I knew she was really desperate. When someone starts making up stories on social media to make their ex look bad, they've hit rock bottom. I was glad as hell that I wasn't part of that mess anymore. My 30th birthday rolled around about 3 months after everything went down. Normally, I'm not big on birthday celebrations. It just feels like another day to me. But my family always makes a huge deal about birthdays, especially milestone ones, and they weren't about to let me skip it just because I had recently become single again. I had been seeing more of Veronica over the past month. When I mentioned my birthday party, she seemed excited to meet my family, which was a good sign. The day of the party, I woke up actually feeling pretty good. I was 30 years old, owned my own house, had a solid job, good friends, and was seeing someone who didn't think I was boring or convenient. Not a bad place to be, all things considered. A hell of a lot better than where I had thought I would be a few months and earlier when I was stressed about wedding planning and dealing with Erica's weird moods. Veronica showed up around 3:10. with this amazing chocolate cake she had made herself. She remembered me mentioning once that I hated the artificial taste of most store-bought frosting, so she made the whole thing from scratch. Little gestures like that meant more to me than she probably realized. My mom loved her immediately. They spent about 20 minutes talking about the cake recipe and cooking in general. My dad was grilling burgers and invited Veronica to try his secret sauce, which he never shares with anyone. Sasha pulled me aside and whispered that she approved, which was huge because Sasha has never liked any of my girlfriends. The contrast with how Erica used to act at family events was pretty stark. Erica always seemed like she was doing me a favor by showing up. Like spending time with my family was some kind of chore she had to endure. She would be polite but distant, checking her phone constantly, and later complaining about how long the events went, or how my dad told the same stories over and over. Veronica actually seemed to be having fun. She was asking my mom about embarrassing childhood stories, laughing at my dad's terrible jokes, playing cornhole with Tom, and holding her own. She fit right in like she had been coming to family gatherings for years. Around 6 in the evening, we were all sitting around the fire pit my dad had built last summer. Good food, good company. A couple of the guys telling stories about the stupid calls we had been on at work. I was thinking this might be one of the better birthdays I had had in years. Definitely. Better than last year when Erica spent the whole time on her phone and barely acknowledged it was my birthday. That's when someone knocked on the front door. At first I figured it was maybe a neighbor complaining about the noise or asking us to move cars or something. We had been pretty loud, and it was a Saturday evening. But when I opened the door, there was Erica standing on my porch with a wrapped present, and this big fake smile as if nothing had ever happened between us. "Happy birthday, Chandler," she said. I just stared at her. She looked different. Thinner, like she hadn't been eating right. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she wasn't sleeping well. Her hair was shorter, as if she had cut it herself or gone to some cheap salon. She was trying to appear happy and confident, but I could see the desperation underneath. "What are you doing here, Erica?" I asked. "I brought you a gift. Can I come in for a minute?" The conversation behind me in the backyard had grown quieter. People were probably wondering who was at the door and if everything was okay. The last thing I wanted was to bring this drama into my birthday party with my family and Veronica there. "You can't just show up here uninvited," I said. I know, but it's your birthday and I felt bad that we're not talking. I just wanted to give you this, and maybe we could talk for a few minutes." She held out the present like it was some kind of peace offering, probably something she had bought months ago when we were still together before she decided Calvin was better than me. The whole situation felt surreal. My ex-fiancée showing up at my birthday party after telling me I was boring and convenient, all because she got dumped by the guy she left me for. "About what?" I asked. "About us. About how stupid I was. About how much I missed what we had." I actually laughed, which seemed to surprise her. "You miss what we had? You mean the boring, convenient relationship? The kiddie pool?" Her face turned red. She probably hoped I had forgotten about that comment, or that time would have softened the impact of those words. But you don't forget when someone you love tells you that you're their backup plan. She tried to backtrack, saying she was upset when she said that she didn't mean it. But we both knew she did mean it. People don't say things that specific and hurtful unless they've been thinking them for a while. That's when the front door opened behind me and Veronica stepped out. "Everything okay out here?" The look on Erica's face was priceless. She went from hopeful to shocked to angry in about 2 seconds. You could see the gears turning in her head. I was supposed to be sitting at home miserable and alone, waiting for her to come back. I wasn't supposed to have moved on, especially not with someone who was clearly attractive and put together. "Who is this?" Erica's voice got loud and shrill. Veronica introduced herself calmly, saying she must be Erica. She was professional as hell. She didn't take the bait or get drawn into drama, just acknowledged the situation and stayed composed. "You're already dating someone else." Erica was getting louder now. "It's been 2 months. Actually, it's been almost 3 months since you chose Calvin over me," I corrected her. "And yeah, I'm dating someone who actually wants to be with me." That's when Erica completely lost it. She started screaming about how I never fought for our relationship and how I replaced her like she meant nothing. Classic projection. She was the one who had thrown away our relationship for her ex, but somehow I was the bad guy for moving on with my life. Veronica just stood there looking uncomfortable but not backing down. She didn't try to defend herself or get into an argument with my ex. She just stayed calm and let Erica make an ass of herself on my front lawn. The yelling drew attention from the backyard. My dad came around the side of the house to see what was going on. He took one look at the situation and told Erica she needed to leave. When she refused and kept screaming, Sasha came out too and told her to get off our property before they called the cops. My family had never really liked Erica, but they had been polite for my sake. Now that we weren't together anymore, they didn't have to pretend. Sasha, in particular, had zero patience for this, and wasn't shy about saying so. Erica wasn't done, though. She was in full meltdown mode now, probably realizing that her grand gesture wasn't going according to plan. She had probably imagined showing up with a present, and me being so grateful that I would want her back and forget everything that happened. Instead, she was having a screaming match with my family while my new girlfriend watched from the sidelines. Not exactly the reunion she had been hoping for. Finally, she stormed off toward her car, but before getting in, she turned around one more time. "This is ridiculous, Chandler. Don't you think it would just be easier if we got back together? We have 3 years of history." I looked at her standing there, mascara running down her face, holding a birthday present for a relationship she had destroyed. 3 months ago, this woman had been my fiancée. Now she was a stranger having a breakdown on my lawn because I had the audacity to move on with my life. Easier for who? I called back because it seemed pretty easy for me right now. She got in her car and drove off, spinning her tires like a teenager having a tantrum. I went back inside to my party, where Veronica squeezed my hand and didn't ask any questions. My family was upset, but they got over it quickly. The rest of the night was actually really fun, as if Erica's visit had been some weird intermission that we all agreed to ignore. I never opened her present. I just threw it in the trash the next morning without even looking at what was inside. Whatever it was, I didn't want or need it. That chapter of my life was closed, and no amount of birthday gifts or dramatic gestures was going to reopen it. About a month after the birthday incident, I heard through the grapevine that Erica had moved back in with her parents. Apparently, she couldn't afford her own place on a teacher's salary without someone splitting the bills with her. The irony wasn't lost on me. She had thrown away a relationship with someone who owned his own house and had a stable career for a guy who used her for 6 weeks and then dumped her. I also heard she had taken a leave of absence from teaching. Whether that was voluntary or the school suggested it after her behavior became too erratic, I don't know. But it couldn't have been easy explaining to her coworkers why she was suddenly single and living with her parents again after being engaged just a few months earlier. Joey kept me updated on the gossip, probably more than I needed to know. Apparently, Erica had been trying to get back in touch with other guys from her past, not just Calvin. It was as if she was working through a list of exes, trying to find someone to take her back. It's pretty sad when you think about it, but that's what happens when you burn bridges for no good reason. The funniest part was hearing about how Calvin reacted when he found out about her birthday party visit. Apparently, someone had told him about her showing up at my house, and he was furious. He called her crazy and told mutual friends that he was glad he had gotten out when he did. The guy who had convinced her to leave me was now talking about her to anyone who would listen. That's the thing about guys like Calvin. They're great at talking women into bad decisions, but they disappear the moment things get complicated. He had filled her head with nonsense about their epic love story and how they were meant to be together, then bailed the second he got what he wanted. And now he was acting like she was the problem. Honestly, I stopped caring about the Erica drama pretty quickly. I had better things to focus on, like building something real with Veronica and advancing my career. The whole situation had taught me what I actually wanted in a relationship. Someone who chose me first, not someone who needed to be convinced that I was worth their time. Around the 6-month mark after our breakup, Veronica and I decided to move in together. She had been practically living at my place anyway, and it made financial sense for both of us. More importantly, it felt right. I wasn't nervous about the commitment or worried about her changing her mind. When you're with the right person, these decisions feel natural instead of forced. 2 months later, I ran into one of Erica's teacher friends at the grocery store. Lisa, the same one who told me I had handled everything well, mentioned that Erica was back to teaching but at a different school across town. Apparently, she needed a fresh start away from people who knew about the whole Calvin situation. Lisa also mentioned that Erica had been asking about me, wanting to know if I was still with that nurse and whether I seemed happy. The fact that she was still keeping tabs on my life through mutual acquaintances told me she probably wasn't doing as well as she wanted people to think. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I had moved on completely, built a new life with someone who actually wanted to be with me, and I wasn't interested in whatever ongoing drama Erica was dealing with. Some people learn from their mistakes and grow as human beings. Others keep making the same bad choices and wonder why their lives don't improve. The wedding dress she bought was probably still hanging in her parents' closet. Somewhere, an expensive reminder of the life she had thrown away for a fantasy. Meanwhile, I was building something real with someone who thought I was worth fighting for, instead of someone who saw me as a backup plan. A year after our breakup, Veronica and I got engaged. It was nothing huge or dramatic, just a quiet proposal during a weekend trip we had planned together. Erica finally broke her silence by sending me a long text from a number I didn't recognize, probably borrowed from someone else since I still had her blocked. The message was like a novel full of apologies, excuses, and begging for one more chance to explain. She said she had been going through therapy and realized she made the biggest mistake of her life, that Calvin had been a fantasy, and I was the real thing. She claimed she had spent the past year thinking about me every day and regretting everything that happened. She insisted she was ready to fight for us now and wanted to meet up to talk about getting back together. I didn't respond to the text. I didn't even acknowledge that I had received it. Erica had said everything she needed to say a year ago when she told me Calvin was better for her. Nothing had changed except that her backup plan had fallen through, and she was realizing that good guys don't wait around forever. Erica taught me what I don't want in a relationship. Veronica showed me what I do want, and that is worth so much more.